You ever just get up and you want to go straight for that cup of coffee? If that's you and me would probably get on pretty well. Where we might differ, though, is in our taste in electronics. And what I mean by that is, I feel like I'm at this point in my life now, as a dad of a couple of young kids, that I want something that just works. You know, it gives me this kind of balance. I'm not looking for like the flashiest and the finest thing that's out there. Definitely not the most expensive, because, you know, realistically, stuff costs way too much money these days. But that's where I found that something like this was surprisingly up my alley. Now, this thing is far from flashy. As you can tell, it's just, you know, really basic. Got this smooth kind of plastic finish to it. And, you know, it's not thin and light either. It's not like those fancy MacBooks that you walk into and it immediately gives you this boutique experience. That's not this at all. What I found, though, this like kind of stable workhorse in this thing. And then when I really wanted to, if I wanted to, this thing could really also help me unwind by, you know, just playing some video games. And yes, you know, I grew up playing video games. I was always the first kid in my class to be lucky enough to either know someone, have a relative, or I was just fortunate enough because, you know, my parents saved up after working long hours and got me this new game. Oh, and they also had video rental stores, of course, back then, you know, like Blockbuster and what 24-hour video or something. So this thing, though, is surprisingly nostalgic in that way. Kind of going back to this time where we didn't get this like crazy over-the-top tech with, you know, Ferrari red lights and unicorn rainbow vomit, this kind of stuff. And that's where I think there's a beauty almost in the simplicity of something like this. You know, when I think about it, over time I've become this kind of person that in some ways when I look in the mirror I don't recognize myself, because I think, wow, I'm totally different from who I was growing up. But this thing kind of reminds me that, you know, we don't have to go chasing after the newest thing or the newest fad, whatever that is. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say in this video here. This thing, in some ways, the simplicity of it is what really sells it. You know, it's got all of what you need. You can plug anything into it. It's got a screen that isn't the most beautiful, but it's also not ugly. And it's not trying to sell you on being something else, basically, is what I'm trying to say. What you see is what you get. Open it up, you get a functional keyboard. You actually have a full numpad, which is nice, you know, if you like to do calculations and stuff like that. And then if you really need to repair it, you can open it up. You can change out the RAM sticks, even the storage and stuff like that, if you feel so inclined, or you know somebody who can do that kind of stuff. I feel like that's what we lost a little bit when we went to, like, you know, all this thin covered in glass type of stuff too. We lost this simplicity, that balance between, you know, looking really beautiful, really fancy and presentable versus just functional and working without needing to be repaired every 20 seconds or, you know, if you dropped it one time. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting you should drop this. This will probably break too if you drop it. But yeah, just kind of harkens back to a time of simplicity for me. Anyway, what I've been using this thing for is just doing daily work grind stuff. Emails and browsing. You know, nothing too demanding. But as I was saying earlier, if I want to, I know that this thing does have some power behind it. I know things like, you know, Steam Deck and like ROG Allies are getting very popular. Legion Goes too. I have one of those. I love one of those too. But when you use this, you just kind of remember, wow, there's a lot of hype that's oversold out there. This thing will absolutely demolish those things in terms of, just sheer power and performance. And I think that's what we've kind of lost in this big marketing consumer engine. When it comes right down to it, yeah, this thing does what you need to do. It's got a 1080p screen, 120 hertz refresh rate, I think. I'll have to double check that. It has an RTX 5050, which doesn't sound like much, but yeah, it's enough to play Cyberpunk, Hogwarts Legacy, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like a lot of single player games where a person like me who doesn't have time or the energy to engage in MMOs and stuff like that anymore can really take advantage. Yeah, so that's where this thing comes in kind of handy. It's got the power when you need it, and it just kind of sits quietly and idles, does its job when you don't need it. I'm over here, bud. I'm over here. What's up?
What is this? Daddy.
Yes, it's Daddy. Oh, where are you going?
Go that way.
I think if you wanted something thin and light and has all the bells and whistles, this is not it. This is not for you. But for the prices that I've seen this recently, well under $1,000, I think that you can get a lot out of this. Surprisingly more than you might think. And that kind of takes me back to what I was saying earlier about my experience growing up. That experience where you just you got what you got and you made it work. You enjoyed yourself with what you had. And it didn't mean that you didn't get what you wanted. It didn't mean that, you were sad and downtrodden. It didn't mean any of that. What it meant was that I'm probably articulating this really badly, but to me, this kind of takes me back to this simplistic type of time in my life where this was the only device. The Super Nintendo may have been the only device that I had, even when, like a PlayStation was out. But that didn't matter. Like, I enjoyed what I had. So maybe that's a better way to explain it and describe it. So if this is all you have, surprisingly, this will get you pretty far. But yeah, that's all I got to say for today. Anyway, this sounds more like a rant than like a kind of tech review or anything like that. So I want to thank you for your time. Also want to tell you that this is not mine. This is a loaner from the company. I do have to return this. But yeah, this is Everyday Kenzou. Thanks for spending some time with me.